I also need to make sure they close the doors, no one runs away. So can the ushers at the back? Okay, deep breath in, and Shamin gave us an exercise, so deep breath in, out, in, out, shake a bit. Okay, you can sit down. Okay, so today I have a difficult task, right? Because almost all the speakers, when maths is mentioned, it's a thing of, yo, that difficult subject. So at some point with our youth, in one of the activities, I played a judge. And I had lawyers come to me and present their case. Today the tables are turned. I must present my case for mathematics. So most of the time, I get asked the question, does maths really matter? I want to be a lawyer. Does it really matter? Can I just do maths lit and live my life and leave all the issues, right? I think Daniel will relate to that question. Does it, though? Does it really matter? And if it does, in what way does it matter? But we can't start talking about something that we have not defined, right? It's mathematics. You define it, and then you speak about it. So let's define this thing. Some say it's practical. Some say, hey, it might be a theoretical subject. Some say it's an art, funny enough. Some say it's a process of thinking. And others say it is a language. I fall somewhere in the art and language category. But I thought, let me get people who do the mathematics to define it, right? Some of the older guys, some are dead, but they did their part. It wasn't maths that killed them, okay? Let's get that part right. So one of my favorite mathematicians, Gauss, called it the queen of the sciences. So when you look at mathematics, everything connects to it. It's the queen. And then you find Bacon, who says it is the door and the key of the sciences, meaning it enables you to enter into places, and it is also the door that some of you might think shuts you out from places, but it's not. Thurston says it is an art of human understanding. Einstein, our favorite guy, says it is the poetry of logical ideas. So all of these guys have defined mathematics in terms of how they've interacted with mathematics. So if I were to ask one of you, what is mathematics? What would you say? I just said shh. Okay? So I heard numbers. What is mathematics? Daniel?
It's numbers.
It's numbers. Musa?
Fractions.
What do you think mathematics is? To you. Yeah.
It's like, a way of figuring things out in a way. So almost like a system of breaking things out. That's how I look at it.
So it's a system of figuring things out. So after my talk, I hope we'll get an idea of what mathematics is. But let's come back to present day. The Department of Education posted a recent research find based on matriculants in terms of performance in mathematics. We are all here, we all look forward to grade 12. But what happens at grade 12? Well, they found that 30%, when we look at marks, 55% of learners get above 30% in mathematics. Only 55. And lastly, only 36%. If you look at the end there, only 36% get above 40%. And now this is a challenge, because it shows us there's a problem somewhere. If only 55% of us are actually just managing to get to 30 and above, and only 36% of us are managing to get above 40%, and varsity requires you to pass at 50%, it seems a bit disjointed. It's like they're setting you up for failure. No offense. Right? You're telling me at school I must get above 30 or 30% to pass, but at varsity they require a 50. When did you train me for this 50%? And when you look at the graph, it doesn't look very encouraging. Only 0.7% of us actually get 90 to 100 in mathematics. 0.7. Majority of people are getting between 30 and 40. If you look at the 19% and the 13.9%. So marks go down. But not all is lost. Now we need to understand, why does this happen? How did we find ourselves in this situation? And it starts here. Maths is split into two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. I've always been a fan of paper 2. That was my thing. So like Anshamin said, I was a visual learner. So anything with pictures, I'm with you. But when you look at this and we decompose all the questions, so they check to see where is the issue with maths. First, knowledge and routine questions, everyone got them. So if I say 1 plus 1, 3 plus 5, 7 plus 11, you see, I started with 1 plus 1. It's something you know. So it's a routine question. Every one of you are like, it's 2. I increased it a bit. But then I changed the order of asking the question. I said 7 plus 11, 2 numbers you were not anticipating. But your brain already knows that it has to add the numbers, but you were not anticipating the numbers. So that became a bit of a challenge. And that's what we found, or what they found, but collectively. Algebraic skills, adding, was an issue. But this is not an issue that begins in matric. It's an issue that begins in grade 4. It is an issue that's also identified in grade 9. That when we fail to understand the things we learn in grade 4 and in grade 9, by the time we get to matric, we're trying to build walls of a house that has no foundation. So we're busy placing things, but there's a hole there. And that's why we struggle. So you're not struggling because you're not good at math. You're struggling because part of the foundation is not complete. So that's one of the things we must work for, ensuring we have firm foundations. And the other thing is the ability to deal with complex questions, right? You can't do complex if you can't do basic. So it's not the trickiness or the hardness of the question that's an issue. It's the 1 + 1 that never got established. So that was paper 1. But if you look at, so if you see at the bottom there in the graph, with my pointer, okay. Question 9 and 10. Those were questions dealing with calculus. 9%, the average performance. Because calculus is not routine. Calculus needs you to understand the concept of what you're doing. So we find there's a gap also with the understanding of the concept. But those are things we fix early in the journey and not later in the journey. So we can't expect by matric now we all wake up and we're like, yo, I'm in matric, focus, pass, distinction. Grade 9, when you do exponents, sit, focus. You don't understand, ask there. It might seem mundane, but you're gonna need that thinking in matric. Because now we assume you know exponents. We assume that if I give you 10 + 10 times by 3 divided by 18 to the power 8 minus 1, exclude your grandmother and mother in that equation, that you understand what we mean, right? Paper 2, same thing. Issue of integrating topics. I give you a cup and I say this is a cup of coffee. I give you another cup and I say this is a cup of milk. So black coffee, milk. But I require you to give me coffee with milk. But you fail to connect the two, that you need to take the milk and pour it into the coffee to make it coffee with milk. So integrating topics. That's part of the things we must learn. Because they won't be asking you, oh, give us black coffee. No. They say, one coffee with milk. So you must say, oh, where's the black coffee? How do I make the black coffee? This is how I make it. Where's the milk? This is the milk. To get coffee with milk, I add the two. And that's what paper 2 is testing. And if you look at here, question 1, we did pretty well. Data handling, right? I think most people have, because there's pictures, they ask you, it's routine questions. I'll always ask you the same thing, what's the mean? If you know how to calculate it, it's a routine question. But now I come and I ask you something, Euclidean geometry, and I say, prove that these two angles are equal. Now you're like, what? Where are these angles? Why are we solving for x even in geometry? But there it's not testing whether you can do a routine question, it's testing understanding. Do you know the theorems that will give you the answer? That will lead you down a path to say, oh, you turn left. Then when you get to left, you turn right, and then you get to your destination. So most people struggle with paper 2 because this is what it's testing. We just want to sit there and cram. Hey, it's nice to cram. I've been there, don't worry. But cramming does not build understanding. Cramming will get us to a place where we get 18%, but we want to be engineers. I can't trust an engineer who got 18% in Euclidean geometry. Their structures will not survive. 18% of it will be correct. Okay? But now, if that's the situation, why should we still care? If we're struggling anyway, why do we care? Because maths does matter. And most of the time, we look at it in terms of our academics. And we say, it's just to get me from point A to point B. After matric, bye-bye maths, I'm going to do art. Guess what? We are there. All day. Dr. Rufus spoke about the world within and the world without. And that's the picture I want you to have in your head as we speak about how maths matters in science, in business, in technology, in society, but most of all, why it matters to you. What does it do for you as an individual? Before we go into the world, what does it do for Nosipho? If Nosipho doesn't want to do business or science, how does maths help them? But let's start with the sciences. Data analysis. Sounds like it doesn't need much of maths, it's just analysis. You're like, they're there doing their experiments. Guess what? They need it. What for? To analyze the data, you need your maths tools. To look at a system that is complex, make it simple, and then put it back into its complex state, you need mathematics. You need the geometry, because that's what you learn in geometry, to decompose and put it back together. Modeling. We recently experienced COVID. What were all the mathematicians doing? Modeling how COVID is going to spread, modeling how we're going to contain it, how should vaccines be put in which area at what time. Those schedules that you would get, they were like, please come on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Someone was monitoring because they'll be like, there can only be 5 people here. Someone needed to model that. What did they use? Mathematics. Quantitative reasoning. So you can't just say, Ish, I believe it, therefore it is. You can't imagine someone comes to you like, this cough mixture will work. Why? It just works. Just take it. You won't believe that person. So scientists need to find a way to say, 80% of people who have taken this medication have gotten better. 30% of people who were vaccinated but ended up in hospital, they need to be able to relate with numbers. So they can't say, trust me, I'm a doctor. You see this, 8 years in university. They can't do that. They need to quantify it. Technology. How many of us have a phone here? Okay. How many of us play video games? Okay. How many of us have social media pages? Okay. And what do you think is the engine running all of these things? The language behind is mathematics. Because even if it's an algorithm means steps that you're taking. Math teaches you how to do those steps. So we see it in coding. So from your phone, you open your YouTube, and all of a sudden everything you like is just popping up. Someone coded that to say if Lubanzi watches these videos every day, that means she likes them. So tomorrow I must give her more of this. But to put that in, you don't just tell the phone, you're like, hey, YouTube, make the things happen. You put a code to say if she watches this more than 3 times, give her more of that. And that's algebra. So if x is greater than 3, meaning if she watches it more than 3 times, give her more of x. So that's what it's thinking, although you're just seeing videos that you like. Engineering designs, you need mathematics. There's calculation. That table you're sitting in front of, someone had to calculate the legs should be this high. That bridge that we travel on the car, someone needed to calculate, can it take the weight of the car? But if they didn't know how to weigh a car, how will they build a bridge? If they didn't know how to calculate how high it should be in terms of taking a ruler. They don't use rulers. Rylan, I don't think y'all use rulers. But if they didn't know how to measure height, they can't build. Data science. Data is the new thing, the buzzword, big data. I don't know where small data was, but we all of a sudden found ourselves in big data. but not the data on your phone. Information. To handle your information. Today in your info pack, we gave you a registration that has a QR code. You're going to enter your information. Someone must go and analyze this information. How many people were there? Where were they from? Who used the QR code, who didn't? To do that, you are using mathematics to reason, to count. Business. Any entrepreneurs in the house? See at the back. See, you need mathematics. I'm talking to you. Statistics. People need to know. How much profit did you make? 30% of people left work. Those things businesses need to know, and they use statistics. Accounting. You cannot have a balance sheet, for those who do accounting, a balance sheet, income statement, although sometimes it doesn't balance the balance sheet, but you need the maths to calculate, to keep track how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. Investors. So I'm currently, part of the work I do is in that space. And I use mathematics to understand, although I didn't do finance, but because I have mathematics, I am able to look at the data and I say, looking at how things are going, what the numbers are telling me, the market is going to crash. Or the markets are doing well. So you see, watch the news, you see those arrows. You need mathematics to know where the arrow is pointing, because if you don't know, it's a good number or a bad number, you'll be in trouble. Society. Part of the things Dr. Rufus also touched on. It's not just about us and our things. It's also about how does maths enable us to move society forward. Infrastructure. When we determine where towns should be, you need mathematics for that. Because you can't put a town where there's supposed to be a road and next thing people are hitting. How are they going to pass? Right? You can't put a mall in the middle of nowhere where no one can get there. So someone needs to plan. And mathematics is used there. Policy making. Although those who are working will tell you they don't like it, but to determine how much tax they need to take from each individual, they need mathematics for that. If they say it's 28% of your income, someone had to calculate that. What does it mean? What would it look like? How many people paid tax? How many people didn't? I hope all of us are paying tax, by the way. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Social justice. In the passage that you read, it spoke about some of the social issues that are there. But part of mathematics helps us to address these social issues. And in what way? Because it helps us to say, if there are these injustices in the world, or the social ills that are there, what are they? How are they spread in the community? Who is most affected? And lastly, what do we do about it? So it plays a role in society. But last but not least, if there's anything you forget, like you forget everything, this one is the role it plays in your life. This year, for our International Maths Day, which was on the 14th of March, the theme was maths is for everyone. And it was speaking to the heart that some of us also exclude ourselves, that maths is not for me. Maths is also for a certain few. No, if you're privileged, you'll have access to all the things that you need for mathematics. Not. One, critical thinking is needed for mathematics, or logical reasoning. You're sitting here today, you made a choice on what to wear. You thought critically. Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? Okay, it's going to be a bit chilly. I'm going to wear a long sleeves t-shirt. You are reasoning, using logic. That's mathematics. Problem solving. How am I going to pass all of these subjects at the same time, wanting to see my friends at the same time? I need to be at church at the same time. I need to relax. All of those things, as you're doing all of that, you're trying to solve a problem. And in the back of your mind, what you'll be using is mathematics. Because you're going to plan it out. Mathematics helps you to plan things out. Visual spatial intelligence. You're sitting there. Already you can sense around you who's behind you. You have a sense of your left and your right. All of those things you developed as a kid. We gave you a block to play with. You could tell the geometry of the box. You could feel it. It helped you to sort of visualize, oh, a square is like this. So mathematics helps you to build those things. Geometry helps you to visualize those things. As much as we don't like it. Sky is like, no. Attention and memory. Again, 5 plus 3. 3 plus 0. 1 plus 2. What your brain just did there is attention and memory. It took the first number, it stored the first number, it took the second number, stored the second number, and then it added them. So maths teaches you how to keep attention and memory of things. Your computer uses the same logic, by the way. When you're busy typing there and putting things, it is storing it and then saying, what does she want to do this? This is what I'm going to do. But lastly, life skills. How many of you can see the mic I'm using currently? How many of you can identify the mic that I'm using? Can you see it? Okay. Lydia, can you see it? But you can hear me. You can't see it, but it's in operation. That's the same thing with maths when it comes to life skills. It's there. You don't see it visually easily, but it's at work. Whether you're shopping, you're cooking, you're drawing, it is at work. So what does it matter to you? Because for you to thrive and be an individual that will impact society, maths enables you in the background to do the things you're doing. The same way this mic, although most of you can't see it, is enabling me to speak to you and for me to be audible. Lastly, this is one of my second favorite mathematicians. It's a lady. It is the late Miriam. She is the first woman to get the Fields Medal. The Fields Medal is like the Nobel Prize of Mathematics, and you only get it when you're under 40. So yes, she did pass away soon. But this is one of the beautiful things she says, that mathematics only shows itself to more patient followers. So it's not a sprint, but you need to be patient with yourself. If you sit with mathematics long enough, one mathematician said that it reveals the beauty that it is there. So one, to reach your potential, 2 things you need to do. You need to reform your mindset in terms of how you view mathematics. If you still see it as something that's hard, something that can't be done, you're creating a stumbling block in your mind. But if you tell yourself, this enables me to live life, this enables me to make better decisions, this enables me to go on social media. When you begin to change your mindset, it becomes a little bit less scary. I know we can be intimidating when you're like, hey, you got this wrong, but change your mindset. Lastly, resource your journey. You can't reach your potential without having resources. Know what works for you, know what doesn't work for you. Sit with the problem and be able to say, I don't understand Euclidean geometry, but in Euclidean geometry, this is what I don't understand exactly. So sit there, analyze, and say, what do I need and how do I get it? So don't give up on yourself, because if you give up on yourself, how are others going to believe in you if you've given up on yourself? How is your teacher going to help you if you already tell them that you can't do this? But when you believe you can do something, everyone around you will rally to help you get that thing done. Like Dr. Moses said in the morning, you never know who's watching. But if you're patient enough with the process, someone will come alongside you and say, let's journey together. Let's do this thing. Your friends are a resource. Your teachers are a resource. Tutors are a resource. Your community is a resource. So if you put all of those things together, reaching your potential will not be such a difficult task. Lastly, it can't be a maths talk without a problem, right? So one of the things that's problematic is algebra. So this is a fun way to work on your algebra and do a game at the same time. So I'm going to ask papers to be handed out so you can write. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. So what you have to do, this is a maze. I think we've all seen a maze, snake and ladders, is that thing, or am I revealing my age? So you're going to say, start here. So that purple block. You have two numbers. They give you m is equals to -3, n is equals to 5. So you're going to substitute the number in there, work out what the answer is, follow the maze through. At the end, you must be there at finish. Eh? The answer is finish. Whatever answer leads you to finish. And by the way, we know some will be like, I got there. No, you must show your work. So for the first one, to kick you off, it's -3, -5 plus 7. You find the answer, you follow the arrow. It can either be -1, it can either be 5, it can either be 15. Okay, I'll come down. Okay, so you've got 5 minutes. Let's see what we can achieve in 5. And yeah, I'll walk around for questions if there's any questions. If I had a whistle, I would go brrr. Okay, so pens down, as they say in an exam. Pens down. If you continue writing, you deduct marks. Okay, so let me get an idea. How did you find the exercise? Okay. I saw with some of the people it was a bit tricky. It looked very complicated, but all we were asking you is to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. What was it testing? Do you know how adding negative numbers work? It was testing, do you know your BODMAS? Right? You forget that one, you end up with an answer, but the arrow is pointing the other way. So you get to keep that and work on it. But in closing, this is what I want you to take away. This is counting that we learn in grade 4 up until grade 9 or so. Nothing has changed. We're still counting. We just put it in such a way that it looks complex, but it's not. So let's fix the foundations where we can. We'll come back in the next time we're back here. I'm going to ask all of you to bring back that page and let's see whether you got to the finish line. But one, thank you to everyone for affording me the opportunity to speak to you about what I love. But lastly, as much as I love you, Maths loves you back. Thank you.